So the first one we're going to look at is Chinese geography. So the standard is, how does this impact Chinese development, or the development of people in China? What do we have?
The rivers provided food, farming, and
Okay, do the rivers provide farming?
well, not really.
What do they provide that allows you to farm?
Rich soil.
And their most important aspect of a river,
Water.
yeah, water. Okay, so the rivers provide rich soil and water for farming. That's the most important thing we want to pull away there. Okay, could we also list other things the rivers allowed them to do? We could make a little list here. We also would have trade,
Clean water.
transportation, clean water, which they use for drinking, for cleaning, which they didn't do very often, okay? But the most important thing we're looking at, as with always, is right there, okay? All right, what other aspects of geography were at play that we saw there? Okay, we have mountains, and what other big geographic feature? Good. Mountains and deserts. And what did they provide for them? What did they provide?
Protection.
Yep. Provided protection. And it isolated China. Kept them kind of by themselves for many years. Okay. Now the interesting thing is, if you look at the heading at the top, what does it say? Chinese geography. If I were to get rid of this word and replace it with Egypt, does the answer change?
Yes. No.
Not at all. If I were to change that word to India, which we just got done studying, would that change?
No.
Do you see the theme here?
Yes.
When we study Rome, it's going to be the same thing, except Rome doesn't really have the deserts that they have. But the point is that especially this rivers aspect, it's the same no matter where we go. Okay? So that's why I think at this point we are very comfortable with this. Am I safe in assuming that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's move on to our two dynasties. Okay, so this is 7-1b. Shang and the Zhou or the Zhou dynasties. We have a couple things on each side. So somebody want to add something up here? Yeah. What's one thing? Okay, the Shang are the ones that developed the Chinese writing. Yeah. Okay, gentlemen. And what did they call it? There's two kind of forms, two aspects to it. Peyton? Yep, pictographs, which were pictures. And then we have ideographs, which were symbols that stood for ideas. Okay, and the writing serves the same purpose as it did in Egypt, in China, in Greece, or I'm sorry, we're in China, India, and Greece. Keep records, communication. Okay, what's another contribution we want to put up here on the list?
They made vases and dishes out of like clay.
Okay, we have a lot of pottery being made. Pottery, and it was primarily made out of a clay. Okay, and a porcelain, which we'll get into, is later on in their history. Yep.
They divide people into groups.
Yes. What do we call those groups when we talk about it?
Social.
Yeah, social classes. Okay. And another one? They did break it up a little bit, yes, that is true. Look over something else.
They built the first Chinese cities.
Yeah, they built the first major cities. Okay. And then kind of going back up here, I just kind of want to add a little bit onto this pottery. They did do pottery, but they did a lot of other art. And what was their favorite material? They like to use this.
Bronze.
Bronze, very good. And there's even that picture in the book of all those bronze, I think they're like bells. Isn't that what they are in the book? Yes, bronze, the bells there, okay? All right, let's move over to the other side. What do we have for the other dynasty, the Zhou or Chao dynasty? You got one?
They ruled for over 800 years.
Yeah, not really a contribution, but certainly an important fact about them is they ruled for 800 years. I guess I should put the word rule in front. Okay, so they were in charge for 800 years. That's a very long time. Okay, what?
Does he just write that that was the longest dynasty in the
Yeah, it was the longest dynasty, and it was a long time of good for China. Very stable, a lot of developing, new ideas. All right, something else, a contribution, something that an important thing that they did. Tyler?
They developed irrigation flood control.
Yes. Irrigation and flood control systems. So they had these rivers that were flooding, and they wanted to be able to control that water to use it, using canals and dams and different things to move the water where their crops were. Makes sense, okay? And they were very good at it. All right, another one?
They built iron plows.
The iron plow, yes. And this is a huge thing for farming. It allows them to plant more quicker, okay? Which, as we know, the more food you have, what can you do? You have more population. And China's population booms. Caroline?
They made and traded silk.
Yep, that's the next one. And this made them pretty wealthy. They made and trade silk along the Silk Route. Okay? Now there's one more. They did develop a bureaucracy, which was part of their government, the appointed officials, that is true.
They established the Mandate of Heaven.
They used, the Mandate of Heaven was part of their ruling, which we're not going to get into with this right now. They did talk about the Tao, which is part of their religion, and this is kind of a tricky question, because it's actually toward the end of the section, during the Warring States period, something is developed right at the end of the Chao. It's kind of a military thing, it has to do with horses. Anybody see that?
Oh, maybe first.
What was it? They didn't develop horses. There it is. They did not develop the horse. Okay. They developed the saddle and the stirrup, which allows them to ride horseback a little more effectively, stay on their horse, be able to fight. Okay? And that's a big thing. Alright, I anticipate this is probably going to be the most difficult thing that we'll have, okay, in terms of information. Alright, so let's jump to our last one, the Warring States period. Without knowing very much, what do we know happens during this time period?
The Shang dynasty collapses.
Not the Shang, but the other one.
Oh.
Okay, the Zhao, okay. They're going to collapse, but what is going to be happening during this time period? They are warring. Who is warring? The states. Okay. But how do we get to this point? What starts it? What starts it?
Well, like local people stopped obeying the
Yeah. The nobles or the local nobles, they stopped listening to the rulers. Specifically the kings. Okay, and then they set up their own states. This is not good. Okay, this would be kind of like everybody in this country deciding they didn't want to listen to the government anymore and set up our own independent states. Okay? Yes, we have our own state of Illinois, but we still abide by the rules and the law of the federal government. If we were to stop listening to them and start our own little thing, and then maybe decide that we wanted to get a little more land and take a little bit of Ohio, or not Ohio, I'm sorry, Indiana or Wisconsin, we're going to have a war on our hand, okay? So they set up these independent states. These states then begin fighting. Did anybody catch how long this time period is lasting?
200 years.
Yeah. 200 years. Okay. So this is greatly weakening China. But out of this war, we're going to see some pretty amazing things happen. So for 200 years, so a lot of people that were born and died during this time period, their entire life was at war. Okay, imagine you were born into a country that is at war and know that when you die, the country is still at war. It's a long time.